Thank you, Professor Sanyol. I am Alina Shymanska, and I was born in Ukraine, and I have lived in Ukraine for 20 years, and then I came to Korea for my studies. And now, since I am already, I received my PhD this year, I'm very proud and I'm very thankful for having me in this room, in this conference. And today I'm going to present about digital statecraft of Eastern European countries. And especially I will focus, of course, on the example of Ukraine, but also I will use the example of Poland. First, we will talk about the geopolitics of Eastern Europe, because many people usually have different opinions of what countries do indeed represent Eastern Europe. Some people say that, oh, Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia are the only Eastern European countries, and other people say like differently. So indeed, there are there is a big variety of what Eastern Europe is exactly. But to say no more that Eastern Europe is actually a very strong platform of geopolitical competition between Germany and Russia. So for the last 20th century, Russia and Germany were in a very competitive relationship, and as a buffer zone, they decided to create these Eastern European countries that would be, as it said, buffer zone between them. So Eastern Europe is basically usually defined as those countries that are located east to the Germany and west to Russia. And from north to south, usually they are defined as from Finland to the north and to Ukraine or to Turkey to the south. So it's a pretty big number of countries over there. And as already mentioned, in 20th century, when after the First World War, Germany was already very annoyed with Russian Empire, and they decided to create this buffer zone to weaken Russia. And after the First World War, they decided to create the concept of Mitteleuropa, they're called in German. I'm very sorry for my German pronunciation. So Mitteleuropa was actually defined, as I already said, from Germany to Russia, and it included like Finland, Ukraine, 3 Baltic states, Poland, and so on and so forth. But also after the Second World War, actually Soviet Union got very powerful, very strong, and Germany was no more able to fight with the Soviets. But at the same time, there was a very big division after the Second World War between the Soviets and between the NATO. So despite those were the allied powers with the West and the Soviet Union against the Nazi Germany, after the war, they decided to have this geopolitical competition, and this geopolitical competition actually was buffer zoned by the Eastern Europe. So after the Iron Curtain was created, those countries that were the parts of the Warsaw Bloc, like Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, like Slovakia, Bulgaria, no today's, and also those countries like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, and Moldova that were actually the parts of the USSR and that were west to Russia, they are usually decided as Eastern Europe. So as you can see, Eastern Europe is a very big zone, and often, eventually, Finland is also can be seen in Eastern Europe because, as you already know, Finland had this treaty with the USSR that resulted in Finland's Finlandization and neutrality. So it was somehow allied to the USSR as well. So for this region, as you can see, these Eastern European countries, they were very disturbed geopolitically. But what happened after the Cold War? When the Iron Curtain fell and the Cold War was stopped and the USSR dissolved, all those small countries in Eastern Europe, they were so eager to get to NATO. They were so scared of Russia. So actually in '93, already Ukraine's President Kravchuk, he made exclamation that it would be nice if Ukraine entered NATO, and on that part, they promised even to give up their nuclear weapons that they inherited from the USSR. And also many other countries like Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, in '93, they already proclaimed that they want to become NATO countries. But at the same time, in '90s, Russia was not eager to lose those countries to the West. So now Russia was claiming that, oh, it's not okay if those countries are going to NATO because they are actually originally under the Russian sphere of influence, and Russia must always be in control of those Eastern European countries, because that's the way of how Russia imagines the world order. So in order to stop those countries from entering NATO, Russia since 90s has usually opted to those powers like economic power of pressure in those countries, or using military power, like for example in case of Moldova in 93, Russia sent those Russian troops to support separatists in Transnistria, and they have this frozen conflict in Transnistria region in Moldova at this moment, so it holds Moldova back from entering NATO and EU. So those various resource power applied in diplomatic means by Russia to coerce those European countries from entering NATO and from entering European Union, or from somehow like losing relations with Russia, is actually can be seen as great power statecraft, as coercion, right? In the words of David Baldwin, who is the father of economic statecraft theory. But also it happened that in the beginning of 2000, everybody knows that it was the boom of those ICT and IT technologies, and many countries started to imply those ICT and IT technologies into their governance. They started to create digital governance, they started to rule, not to rule, but to get the data about their citizens, about their people, about their public services through those digital means. And Russia started to apply those cyber attack means on the critical infrastructure of the Eastern European governments. And as it can be seen, the first such attack was happening in Estonia in 2007. It was the first instance of Russian digital statecraft against the Eastern European countries, and it happened 3 years after Estonia entered NATO. So actually, it can be seen as a kind of digital form of retaliation towards Estonia. But it's not only Russia that is very coercing in Eastern European countries. As you can see on this map is showing with those yellow booming signs, it's showing countries that are most prone to cyber attacks in Eastern Europe. And while making this map, I was taking sources from Council of Foreign Affairs. They have a very beautiful data called Cyber Tracker. So I checked some data from the Cyber Tracker, and I made some list of countries that were mostly coerced by Russia by digital means, and you can see those are Ukraine, Finland, Poland, those all Eastern European countries, but also Germany and UK. Well, but also China is started to actually have a very very assertive digital infrastructure development projects in Eastern Europe. So those diplomats from China, they usually started to create, for example, 60+1 or Digital Silk Road, those projects that would on one hand help those digital, the Eastern European countries to build their digital infrastructure, but it was said that the technical standards would be Chinese. And as you already know, the United States is having many doubts with those 5G technical standards of China, of this Huawei situation. So on one hand, the Eastern European countries are bombarded by Russia with cyber attacks. On the other hand, they have China who is asking them or asserting them to have Chinese infrastructure built in these countries. And on the other hand, they are having clean network. And the United States who is saying, oh, no, please do not take those Chinese standards, please deny them, please become the clean network participant. So we can see that there are different kinds of digital expansionism of China, digital reactionism of the United States, and digital militarism of Russia taking place in the Eastern Europe. But how those Eastern European countries respond, how do they state for themselves? That was the topic of my PhD dissertation. And I was taking the 4 countries and comparing them, such countries as Finland, Estonia, Warsaw, and Ukraine. And I wanted to show how those countries suffered from Russia, how they wanted to deter Russia, how they wanted to give influence to NATO so that NATO could help them deter Russia. And this it's what I call the digital statecraft of middle powers in the Eastern Europe. So today I did also Estonia and Finland, but today I will turn more to Poland and Ukraine. So in case of, it's also important to note that my research was doing in 4 stages, and those stages were took from Michel Calon's actor network theory. So the first stage was, it's not that Poland and Ukraine are attacked by Russia. It's only their problem, right? But those Poland and Ukraine, they must convince NATO and they must convince other participants. So how do they convince? So I took this strategy from actor network theory by Michel Calon, who is saying that the first point would be finding structural holes in security environment so that other actors would be interested to cooperate and telling them, oh, there is a problem, so let's fix it together and you also will benefit from it. The second one is interessement. It's the Michel Calon's word from French, and in English it means interposition. And Michel Calon is trying to show that how it's made in like diplomatic process in some kind of regional or multilateral arena. And the third one is identifying threats or countries that should be avoided from the process. And finally, setting a standard or creating a norm. So let's start from Poland. So as you can see, Poland was pretty much bombarded by Russia starting from 2014 because it was very supportive of Ukraine getting to NATO. And because of being supportive of Ukraine, it was pretty much offended by Russia's hackers. So what Poland decided to do? Poland couldn't just stand and say, oh, help me. Poland decided to go this way. They found the Atlantic Council's report calling Completing Europe, which is saying that because Eastern Europe was under communist control, they are less developed than Western Europe, and not just in transportation and energy sense, but also in digital sense. So because there is such a big Eastern Europe, Western European divide in digitalization and in case of cybersecurity, Poland said that, okay, all the Eastern European countries should create some kind of digital standards and improve infrastructure, and let's ask United States to build infrastructure for us. And because of this, the 3Cs initiative was adopted. This initiative consists of all those countries in Eastern European. Sometimes Ukraine fits in, sometimes not, but I found this map, and it has all those participants from Finland and Romania and 3 Baltic countries, and they are trying to create the 3Cs digital highway, which will be a very, very secure, a very strong and resistant digital infrastructure across the region. Yes, so that's how they decided to do inter-assessment, and they said that everyone will benefit from it, right? And they identified strengths as Russia in their Digital 3 Initiative cooperation report, but also they identified China, because everybody knows that during Trump administration, China actually was selected as the major adversary of the United States. So eventually the standard was set, and on the part of Poland, all the countries from Digital 3Cs initiative, they entered clean network from the United States, and United States at the Congress, they decided to support this project financially and technically, but unfortunately, since 2022, February, the Ukrainian war, the project is on hold. In case of Ukraine, Ukraine is the most bombarded country by Russia in the world, and Ukraine started to convince people in this way. Oh, look, there is petavirus. Oh, look, there is some viruses that are targeting Ukraine, but they do not target only Ukraine. They target everyone. They target NATO as well, because this cyberspace doesn't have borders, so those viruses are spreading. So please help us. So because of this, Ukraine they asked NATO to help, but it seems that because Ukraine is not actually a NATO member, NATO cannot fully fund Ukraine directly, so Ukraine created a kind of diplomatic multilateral process where it convinces some of the NATO countries that are most friendly to Ukraine, for example, Romania, Lithuania, Estonia, those NATO countries, to provide a trust fund for Ukraine. So since 2014, Ukraine had two trust funds. The one was to secure Ukrainian citizens' civilian infrastructure from Russia's cyber attacks, and another one was to secure military one. And those trust funds, they were going for 30 months. And during that time, Ukraine actually developed a very strong resilience to the Russian cyber attacks. And during that time, even those offensive cyber capabilities that Ukraine is possessing right now were created thanks to those projects. And also starting from 2023, Ukraine is conducting a talent mechanism where Ukraine, together with Estonia, are finding another partners that could help Ukraine to fight against Russian cybersecurity offenses. So, of course, Russia is identified as threats in both the Polish project and Ukrainian project, but it happened that Polish statecraft was more strong because Poland made it to adopt all those Eastern European countries' standard. Of course, it wasn't Polish original standard, it was like standard from the United States, and Poland just brought it to the Eastern Europe like broker. But thanks to adopting those clean network standard in Eastern Europe, through the Poland's brokership, it happened that Poland did actually survived as a middle power in cybersecurity sphere. And the Polish digital statecraft can be seen very successful. On the other hand, Ukraine didn't actually adopt some kind of standard in NATO, but it adopted NATO standard to herself. So maybe Ukraine is not that successful in becoming middle power, but it's successful in growing those resource power to be resilient against Russia's attack. So that's my presentation, and I will be happy to receive questions until all the participants are finished with presentation. Thank you.